We are learning more about the person who started out with Hegseth as a workout buddy and is now a very key member of his rapidly shrinking inner circle. Brian Todd is out front.
Good morning. How's life? Good, sir.
In a line to greet NATO's Secretary General today, a man who's made a rapid rise to become a critical figure in Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's shrinking inner circle. He's Colonel Ricky Berea, a Marine with several combat deployments, who served as a junior military assistant to Hegseth. CNN's sources say in a few short months, Ricky Berea has become one of Hegseth's most trusted advisors, as the secretary has grown more paranoid about leaks. One defense official says Hegseth likes Berea's yes sir attitude. Multiple sources tell CNN Berea has access to Hegseth's personal and government phones. He's been seen working out with Hegseth in photos posted on X, appears in a photo laughing with Elon Musk when Musk visited the Pentagon, and he's even sat in on meetings with foreign leaders. When he worked for Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin during the Biden administration, a former senior Pentagon official says Berea was essentially a body man for Austin, often seen carrying his bags. Now, CNN sources say, as Berea puts in for his retirement, Hegseth is considering appointing him his chief of staff.
One distinct problem would be the fact that as a retired colonel, he would be, in effect, outranked by all of the admirals and generals in the Pentagon. And it would make it very difficult for him to undertake the responsibilities of that position.
Multiple sources tell CNN that weeks before The Atlantic reported that Hegseth used Signal to discuss detailed military plans, Berea pushed to get Hegseth an extra desktop computer in his office with Signal on it, so Hegseth could text friends and family. Those sources tell CNN that after The Atlantic story broke, Berea asked the Defense Department's chief information officer if Hegseth could be granted an exception to use Signal more freely at work, a request that raised eyebrows among senior officials. It's also surprised a former Trump administration official.
Asking for the authorization was crazy. I mean, why would you put a insecure commercial app that can be hacked by a foreign signals intelligence service on any communications device related to the Secretary of Defense, especially when he has the most robust communication staff of anybody in the government beyond the president?
The Defense Secretary's office is considered a secure space, cell phones usually not allowed. It's not clear if Hegseth was ever given the exception to use Signal freely, or if he's continued to use it to discuss military planning. He dodged a question on that today.
Mr. Secretary, are you still using Signal for work purposes?
Secretary, to get to work, which is what we do.
The Pentagon's chief spokesman tells CNN the secretary has never used and does not currently use Signal on his government computer, but did not say why Hegseth had another computer set up with Signal installed on it. Even during the Biden administration, the government's cybersecurity agency said that highly targeted individuals should use Signal to communicate, but Pentagon rules say Signal cannot be used to transmit non-public military information. Ricky Berea did not respond to CNN's repeated request for comment about his growing influence in Pete Hegseth's inner circle, including his role in helping to facilitate Hegseth's use of Signal inside the Pentagon. Aaron?
Senior Pentagon officials tell me and Haley Britsky and Natasha Bertrand in our Pentagon reporting unit that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's new closest advisor helped set up a Signal on a personal computer of his, Signal and text, on a personal computer of his at the Pentagon on his desk. And then that was before Signalgate broke. And then after Signalgate broke, they asked the Pentagon's chief information officer if he could still keep using Signal on this personal computer. What's your take on this?
This is kind of just like flabbergasting. It's one story after another. I know how I actually help organize strikes against the Houthis. You're in your skiff, which is a controlled, compartmented facility. That's where our offices are. You're getting reports on something called SIPRNet. That's the secret system from CENTCOM on strike times, what's happening. And you usually then report that on an even higher level system called JWICS, to top secret system to others in the national security community. So the fact that it's on Signal, that type of information, is just wrong by any account.
What about the second Signal chat where his wife and his brother and his lawyer are on it?
Again, he should have come out in the beginning and said, you know, this job's maybe a little harder than I thought. I take full responsibility. It won't happen again. It's the constant dissembling and blame shifting that has been a huge problem here. Look, I know Trump does not want to make a change at the Pentagon. At some point, though, when he is expending political capital to defend his own Secretary of Defense, that's going to be a problem. And also, let's not lose sight here of the Houthi campaign. This has been going on now for 5 weeks. And I think there are real questions about the direction in which it's going. It's about a 6-month campaign. I know something about it because we helped develop it under the Biden administration. We handed it off in the transition. But is Hegseth paying attention to this? How's it going? I think those are questions that are worth asking, because all these distractions, it's just so notable, Jake, that his own people have left the Pentagon and reported to the American people that the Pentagon is in a full-blown meltdown.
Yeah, his former spokesman, John Uliad.
That you need. The chain of command goes from the president to the Secretary of Defense, and then every military deployment around the world, that's how it works. That office is so critical. Discipline and professionalism in that office. It's about the protection of our country.
President Trump took a lot of questions today in the Oval Office, quite a change from the previous occupant. But he also just finished an interview with the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg, who was, of course, added to that infamous Signal group chat where sensitive military operations were discussed. Earlier today, President Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, "I am doing this interview out of curiosity and as a competition with myself, just to see if it's possible for the Atlantic to be truthful. Are they capable of writing a fair story on Trump? The way I look at it, what can be so bad? I won." This, of course, comes as CNN is learning that a new advisor for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, quote, pushed to get Hegseth an extra desktop computer in his office that he could use Signal on, ostensibly for personal communication so he could more easily text friends and family from the Pentagon, the sources said. Let's go straight to the panel. Aaron McGuire, we'll start with you. So far, one House Republican, one congressional Republican, let's include the Senate too, Don Bacon was on the show. He said if he was in charge, if he was the president, he would fire Hegseth because it just upsets him so much, especially as a former Air Force general, that this information would be shared so irresponsibly. Do you think Hegseth should keep his job? What do you think?
As of right now, all indications from the Trump administration and from Republicans in D.C. is Hegseth's still on good standing. Now, we all know that could change at literally any second and at any moment. But he's doing what Trump wants him to do. One, anytime a story comes out, he is fighting back. At the Easter egg roll, he went straight to camera and made his appeal to the president, pretty much, to be able to keep the job as this firestorm continues. They're using Twitter for rapid response right now, or X, about the story about the green room and whether or not he was adding lights to a makeup studio. Again, pushing back. They're being aggressive. That's what Donald Trump wants to see. But if you start to hear more whispers, more names come forward, because we're not even hearing it off the record, right? Because there is always times where in reporting it's, oh, one Republican's public, but behind the scenes, they're all saying the same thing. You're not hearing that yet. So Hegseth is still on solid ground across the board. And the White House continues to push back against that NPR reporting from earlier in the week that said that the White House was looking to replace him.
So, Jonah, I mean, Hegseth did go out on the Easter egg roll day and give this defiant appeal, perhaps directly to President Trump. I mean, he said things that people in the know told me were just obfuscatory, just misleading, like the idea that that second Signal group chat was about media appearances and casual stuff. It was, until he started sharing war plans, and then it became something else.
Yeah, look, I mean, if the question is, should he be fired? He shouldn't have been appointed in the first place. And if you just go by the standards that Pete Hegseth, my former Fox News colleague, said about Hillary Clinton and about national security and about maintaining secrets and stuff, by his own previous standards, he should be fired. The reason why I don't think you're going to see I agree with Aaron that there are not a lot of Republicans who are clamoring for him to go, is because first of all, who are you going to replace him with, and will he be better? And can you get anybody through the Senate right now? They just don't want to deal with it. So until Trump gets tired of him, they're just going to say, they're going to roll their eyes a lot.
Today, the Atlantic's editor-in-chief sitting down with Trump for an interview 1 month after Goldberg wrote about the Signal group chat that he was inadvertently added to about all those war plans in Yemen. So why is President Trump doing it? Here is how Trump explains it. Quote, he's doing this interview out of curiosity and as a competition with myself, just to see if it's possible for the Atlantic to be truthful. Are they capable of writing a fair story on Trump? The way I look at it, what can be so bad? I won. But it also comes as we continue to learn more about the extent of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's use of the commercial messaging app Signal. Today, CNN reporting that after Goldberg's bombshell article, one of Hegseth's, quote, closest military aides made an unusual inquiry to the Defense Department's chief information officer. Would they grant an exception so that Hegseth could keep using freely? It is unclear if that request was ever approved. Joining our panel, CNN contributor, New York Times journalist, and podcast host Lulu Garcia Navarro, along with the rest of our panelists. Lulu, how about I start with you on this one? I think, the bottom line is, as much as Donald Trump, aggressively trashes the quote-unquote mainstream media, legacy media, whatever you want to call it, he talks to all of them, right? Like all that time he was down kind of in exile at Mar-a-Lago, he was having book author after book author after book author through Mar-a-Lago. This is part of how he does business. Still, it is pretty remarkable. I mean, he obviously he's going to be joined by two other journalists as well, Ashley Parker and Michael Scher, who he had openly trashed and said, absolutely not am I doing an interview with them. What's going on?
Well, so first of all, the president's poll numbers are going south. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing is that even though this president has been remarkably accessible when you think about compared to Biden, whom we never saw either in unscripted moments or certainly in sit-down interviews, President Trump hasn't done a lot of long sit-down interviews with the legacy media since he came into power. I'm actually struggling to think of one other than the Time magazine when he got the cover. So this is, first of all, remarkable because he's sitting down with real journalists, asking tough questions in a long-form setting. And so
he did do it during the campaign with Time magazine.
No, he did it. No, right, during the campaign. But
you're saying when he got the cover.
When he, yeah. So, I think this is a moment for the president, to reach perhaps other audiences that aren't his traditional base. But also, it's grabby, right? This is the man who, Jeffrey Goldberg came up with this incredible scoop about being put in a signal chat that had all these, secret war plans, and now he's getting, and now we're talking about it, and now we're talking about it, and he can't not want to take that and him mano a mano with Jeffrey Goldberg.
It was almost the easiest scoop ever, I have to say, Ron. No discredit to Jeffrey Goldberg, who I obviously respect deeply.
Trump is a creature of 80s tabloid New York, right? As Maggie Haberman pointed out in her book on him. I mean, he clearly believes there is no such thing as bad publicity. And he, as you're saying, he relishes, the confrontation with my former colleagues at The Atlantic. But, in some ways, the fact that he is willing to sit down here is kind of less interesting to me than what he is making Republicans on the Hill do to defend. I mean, the pressure to defend the indefensible in Hegseth's behavior. That is, as students of authoritarianism will tell you, that is a hallmark of strongman leaders. Each time you force people in your party to defend things they never could have imagined they would have defended before, it gets easier to do it again, to lead them further out into deeper water. You're smiling at me, Mark. I mean, the thought that Senate Republican hawks a year ago, if you would have told them they would have been defending a Secretary of Defense this reckless repeatedly on matters of national security, they would have laughed at you. They would have laughed at you if you told them you were defending an HHS secretary who won't intervene in a measles epidemic. But each step makes the next one easier. And clearly, Trump, if nothing else, understands power and understands how to wield power. And he is certainly wielding it over his fellow Republicans in making them line up behind Hegseth.
Mark Short, that one's for you.
I think we're overthinking this a little bit. I think that the point is Lulu's second point, that the president loves ratings. And he knows this can get ratings because of the Atlantic story on Pete. And it's sort of like the Bill Maher interview. He knows that's going to get ratings too. And, it's the sort of in his mind, I think it's a win-win, because either like Bill Maher comes out and says, actually he was friendlier and nicer than I thought. And he's actually, as you know, Casey, actually very congenial and very friendly.
Until he gets mad at you.
In person, he's still friendly. No, it's like he'll get ugly in the Twitter spot, but in person.
On the phone too.
In person, he'll be friendly. And so it's like you either come out that way, or if it's a bad story, he'll trash it as a left-wing rag again. And so, I don't think he thinks of the other consequences of other people defending Hegseth. For him, it's just, this is good ratings.
I think this is hilarious. I think Republicans want this story to go away. And the President of the United States just is now giving The Atlantic an avenue to keep it going. If I were Hegseth, I would be furious. There is already reporting that Donald Trump is meeting with people within the White House about Hegseth. Hegseth is terrified, doing Fox News interviews all the time, doesn't know what to do, and now the president is sitting down with the person who is signal
and
chat.
yet none of the
Like, are you
Republicans,
kidding me?
even amid that reporting, none of them will get one step ahead of Trump
Exactly.
in criticizing him.
But no one can get a step ahead of Trump. And this is the thing that I have found so fascinating about this administration. If you try and talk to even the heads of departments, like that are